Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello everyone, welcome to lecture 13 of this course on machine learning for earth system science. Like right now we are in module 2 where we are reviewing the various machine learning methods which are relevant for this course, and today we are going to have a lecture on convolutional networks for spatial problems. The concepts that we are going to cover today are as follows: convolution operation for spatial data, feature representations for spatial data or images, and finally the CNN or convolutional network neural network based models for computer vision. So first of all, let's talk about spatial data. So let's consider a tensor, like let us say like a kth order tensor, like whose different dimensions of size s1, s2, s3, etc. up till sk. Now here the first dimension is which is s1. This stands for the latitude or the vertical location of a measurement. The s2 is like the longitude or the horizontal location. s3 is the channel, and so on. Like if there are more dimensions, they can also have some some interpretation. Now in most cases, however, like this k will be either 2 or 3. So if k equal to 2, that is then we have only only two dimensional spatial data like a grayscale image. So we can in that case x is effectively just a matrix. S1 is something like its row number, and S2 is its column number, which can also be imagined as latitude or longitude. Now if k is equal to 3, then it's a three-dimensional matrix, and then and especially if the number of or if the third dimension, like its size is 3, then it, we can say it's like a three-dimensional spatial data like RGB or the which is a standard color image. So a color image, as you know, it's like three grayscale images taken together. Each of those three is they represent the three color channels: the red channel, green channel, and the blue channel. So in such a situation, in case of this three-dimensional image, if I say x, I, j, k, that means the value of the variable of interest. You can say the pixel value at latitude I, which is basically the row number, longitude j, which is the column number, and the channel k. So now the task is you have this image this three-dimensional or two-dimensional image x, which is of course a collection of all these values which we can call as the pixel values. So now estimate y is equal to fx, where f is a linear or non-linear function of x. Now so suppose this is a simple example of that. So suppose we are talking about a pixel. So then I'm sorry, I mean if we are talking about a grayscale image, so this is a typical example of a grayscale image. So these these small boxes, as you can see, these are the different pixels. So needless to say, each pixel is it has its latitude, which is its we can say its row number starting from the top, and its longitude, which is the column number, maybe starting from the left. And each pixel has a value. That value may be any in case of images which we can see, the standard images which are we take with our camera and so on, each pixel takes a value between 0 and 255. So 0 means very dark, and 255 means very bright or white color. So if it is those pixel intensities, they are stored in this kind of a 2D matrix. Every cell of the matrix or every element of the matrix contains a pixel value. So if we actually visualize it by attaching colors to each of these locations, based on the corresponding intensity, this is what it may look like. So, as you can see, this is probably like a very coarse grained representation of a human being's face. But as we increase the resolution, by resolution I mean the number of these rows and columns, then we see the image getting sharper and sharper, and we will like all the different features of the human face, the eyes, the nose, the mouth, etc., the hair, etc., they will become more and more prominent as we make the image like sharper, that is to say of higher resolution. On the contrary, if we keep on lowering the resolution by actually merging these pixels further, that is, if instead of these 4 pixels, if they are replaced by 1 pixel, these 4 pixels are replaced by 1 pixel, and so on, then we will see the image getting even more blurred than this. And so like if the process of making it sharper or more high resolution, that is sometimes it's called upsampling, and the process of making it blurred by coarsening the data, that is sometimes called as downsampling. Now like we have an additional information in case of most kinds of spatial data, including image like visual images like this. That information is that neighboring pixels are likely to have similar values. That is the spatial autocorrelation property, which we have studied in the sometime in module 1. And also further we also know that neighboring pixels are likely to belong to the same object. So like in this case, for the different objects on a human face are of course the eyes, the nose, etc. Like if it is instead of a human face, if it were a general, let us say a scenery, then like the different objects could have been say trees, hills, roads, buildings, etc. So we can say that most neighboring pixels are likely to belong to the same object. That is to say, because the objects are coherent structure. If this is an image and an object is present at a particular location, then it's unlikely that the object will be partially present in this pixel, partially present in that pixel, partially present in this pixel, and so on. It's not like that. Usually the object is covered by a contiguous block of pixels. So neighboring pixels are likely to belong to the same object. Now of course here we are not talking about visual images per se, but when we are dealing with other kinds of spatial data in the which emanate in the domain of earth system sciences, then also many of these properties are found to be holding good. In fact, we have especially this property of spatial autocorrelation that we have discussed in our earlier lectures. That is very much true in case of earth science data also. Now so like we already mentioned this y equal to fx. Now what kind of thing is the or mathematical structure is that y? So this y, this can be a one real number, it can be something like a probability distribution over over a range, or it can be another tensor. That is like by tensor, like I also mean it can be like a vector or a matrix and so on. Now in case it is some kind of a tensor, then we can say like that is, so it will obviously be like a collection of many values. Say if the input is an image x and the output is another image y. So that output image will also have several pixels, and the function f that we mentioned, like it is like mapping x to one particular pixel. So similarly, like we will have to map the input image x to all the pixels of the output image. Now it may be the same function being applied to all the pixels of the input image to calculate the output image, or it can also be different functions being defined for the different elements of the output image. Or it can also the function which f which we mentioned, that function need not be like or need not take as input all the pixels of the input image. It can also focus on only one particular pixel of that input image. Say for example, let us just take a trivial case, the identity function. So let us define such a function which will just map like an image to itself. So, basically we will the function f will be such that it will like we will apply that function f separately to each pixel in the input image, and the output will be just that pixel value itself. So, it will be just one to one pixel mapping, but the function f, in that case its input will be just a single pixel of the input image, and we will apply that function f to each input pixel separately one by one. Now, so like any whatever function it is, any function can be represented by a neural network. So, there is this famous theorem which claims this kind of a thing, that whatever function we are talking about, if it is a continuous function, then we will be able to represent it by a neural network. Now, a standard function which is used in many such situations is a nonlinear activation on a linear function of neighboring pixel values. So, let us let's take an example. So, let us say that this is the input image. So, these are the rows and these are the columns. Now, I want to define the function f such that let us say let us say that function f impacts these 4 pixels, and the output is some value like this. Now, this value is it's possible that this is the only output, that is this is x and this is y. That's a possibility. Alternatively, a possibility is that the output is another image like this. So, in that case we need to define the function for for each of these pixels in the output image. So, either it can be different functions for each pixel, or it can be the same function but applied to different sets of input pixels. For a simple example can be that there is only a single function f, which is let us say we apply it to these 4 pixels, whatever value we get we put it here. Then again that same function I next consider these 4 pixels and I place it here. Then after that I consider these 4 pixels, I apply the function and I place it here, and so on and so forth. Okay. So, now what kind of function can this be? So, one possibility is, so let us say that these values, let us denote by a11 or let us say x11, x12. Similarly, this one can be x21, next one is x22 and so on. So, one possibility is that we just let us consider a11 x11 plus a12 x12 plus a21 x21 plus a22 x22, and on the whole thing we just put the some kind of a nonlinear mapping f, right. So, you can say that this is a linear combination and this is f. This can be any nonlinear mapping. We sometimes call this as the activation function. So, this way we get some value. This value we can put as the the value of this output pixel. Now, that same set of these a1 so these a11 a12 a21 a22, these we can consider to be some constants, some that is whose values may not be known, but the function which we are talking about, we can define it in terms of so we can consider a11 a12 etc. as the parameters of that function. Okay. So, now when we are trying to calculate the value of this pixel, then what we will be doing is we will be using a11 on x12 plus a12 on x23 plus a21 on x22 plus A22 on x 2 3 and then the nonlinear activation f. So it's like initially we were focusing on the first 4 pixels. After that I am focusing on the next 4 pixels. So this process, this is known as convolution. So it's like saying that I have an image like this and I have a convolutional filter like this. So we can say A11, A12, A21 and A22. And now this convolution filter, what I am effectively doing is I am moving it, sliding it all over the image. So I will initially put it in this position, after that and then slide it horizontally, and then I will just move it horizontally and so on. That way I will be computing the output value for every of each of these output pixels along the first row of the output image. After that I will shift this filter down and I will be focusing on these 4 pixels, and then again I will slide it horizontally like this, and then I will be getting all the values out of this row in the output image, and then again I will move it down. So it's like I am sliding it horizontally and then vertically, horizontally and then vertically, and so on. And now when I am sliding that the filter, I may either I can slide it smoothly or continuously, or I can take jumps. That is I am initially placing it in this on the first 4 pixels. Then after that I can from here I can jump till the next 4. So in that case I am taking a jump of 2 steps, or I can just slide it by 1 step, or I could have jumped it by say 3 steps or 4 steps also. Let's say after covering these 4 pixels, now suddenly I cover these 4 pixels. So in that case I have taken a big jump. So this is known as the slide of the convolution operation. Okay. So this convolution operation, this is it's an important task of the of image processing. So these the filter which we talked about, which consists of these A11, A12, etc., this is sometimes known as a convolution mask. This is these kind of convolutional masks, they are the convolution operation, this is often used on images for various purposes such as coarsening the image or edge detection or so on. So like in the image processing community, they often define these convolutional kernels in such a way, or the convolutional masks or kernels in such a way as to identify certain special types of orientations in the image. Say there are kernels for detecting horizontal edges, kernels for detecting vertical edges, and so on. So what I mean by that is there are certain kernels. So if you convolve this input image with that kernel, in the response image, wherever there is some kind of say let's say a horizontal edge, some for example here you can see the face of this animal. So along the outer end of this face, you can understand that there is some kind of an edge. Similarly, if you consider these outlines, so these are something like edges. So these edge is, of course, it's neither horizontal nor vertical, but then there are an image can have horizontal or vertical edges. So the idea is that the output will be some kind of a binary image, or as you are seeing this output. So the wherever those pixels which constitute a horizontal edge, those pixels will be shown in white. The other, that is, they will have a high output value, while the other pixels, they will have low output value, and hence they will appear as black. So this is how the operation of convolution is used in the domain of image processing. Now this convolution operation can be implemented with the help of a neural network. So neural network we know is capable of of expressing various mathematical functions. Now this convolution is a special kind of mathematical function which is capable which is very useful in image processing and signal processing, and it has been shown that this convolution function can also be implemented using a neural network. So how is that? So the way a standard neural network operates is as follows. So what a neural network usually does is it calculates functions like this. So let us say we have this kind of a thing, an input vector, let us say x1, x2, x3, x4. So the neural network basically considers this vector as like input nodes which contain the values x1, x2, x3 and x4. Now what the neural network does is it has some hidden units. Let's say there are 2 hidden units, let's say for simplicity, and then there are edges like this which connect the input nodes with the hidden nodes, and then from the hidden nodes there is, let us say there is an output node also. So what happens in each node is that like any node of the neural network, what it does is it receives inputs from other nodes in the previous layer. Each of these inputs has some kind of a weight, let us say. So these weights maybe we can call them as W11, this one maybe I can call it as W12, this one is W21, this one is W22, so similarly this one is W42, this one will be W41, and so on and so forth. So here let us say that in any neuron in the except the input neurons in any hidden layer, let us say that this is a neuron which has 4 connections from the previous layer, and their weights are W1, W2, W3 and W4, and let us say the corresponding nodes in the previous layer, they contain the values x1, x2, x3 and x4, correct. So the value which the neuron will calculate in this case is W1 x1 plus W2 x2 plus W3 x3 plus W4 x4, and then apply some kind of an activation function on it. So like this is so that we can like that output we can call it as y1, correct. So similar so like what it is doing is basically something like a matrix operation. So you can imagine these x1 x2 these to be a matrix X, and these w's to be or rather a vector X, and these w's they are like another vector w. So we are effectively calculating the dot product between these two things, like we are getting W transpose X, and then we are putting the function f on it. So similarly, if you like if there are multiple, if you instead of considering only one neuron like this, if you consider 2 neurons, then you can say that like the different weights we we can consider them to be different columns, separate columns of a matrix, and then like instead of defining a row a vector operation like this, we can consider this as a matrix multiplication. So where in this case W is a 4 cross 1 matrix and X is also a 4 cross 1 matrix. Now if there are like if we are considering 2 hidden nodes, then we have 2 sets of weights. So it will be we'll make it as a 4 cross 2 matrix. So then this W transpose X, this will have size 2 cross 1, and on that we can each of them I can like apply this function f. So this can act on this function f is such a function which acts on every element of the vector, so that it's like saying that on each of these outputs we are applying the same activation function f. So that is how our neural network usually works. Now the same thing can be done in a convolutional the same thing can be done to replicate the simulate the operation of convolution. So let us say that this is the like an input vector, and now so if you do the multiplication with this kind of a weight matrix, then you can just convince yourself that this is going to be the output. But the interesting thing to note is this is output is the same as what you get if you carry out the convolution operation on this input using this kind of a this convolution kernel. So just to demonstrate once, so 1 2 3 these are the values. So initially when you are doing the convolution, so initially you place it against the first 3 elements. So 4 multiplied by 1 you get 4, 2 multiplied by 2 you get 4, minus 1 multiplied by 3 you get minus 3. So 4 plus minus 3 is equal to 5. So the answer so here the first output is 5, and you can check here the indeed the first output is 5. Next you slide that this kernel or mask to cover the next 3 inputs. So here 2 times 1 is 2, minus 1 times 2 is minus 2, and 0 times 3 is of course 0. So the result is 2 minus 2 plus 0, which is 0, and you see 0 in the output. So similarly if you slide it to the next 3, so then minus 1 times 1 is minus 1, 0 times 2 is 0, and 6 times 3 is 18. So minus 1 plus 0 plus 18 is 17, and you have 17 here, and so on. So so here you see that if you do the convolution of this input with this convolution mask, then this is the output you will get. But if you do the matrix multiplication with this kind of a weight matrix which has this 1 2 3 this mask placed as a repeating structure in the different columns, then also you will get the same output. So that means the convolution operation can actually be expressed as a matrix operation, provided your matrix is defined in that particular way. So what happens in a convolutional neural network is that the different edge weights which we talked about are defined in such a way that it simulates the convolution operation. And now along with convolution, another operation that is very important in the domain of image processing and computer vision, that is max pooling. So let us say these are your different pixel values. So what you do is you divide these into blocks, and in each block you store only the largest value, that is the max pooling. So like the block size can be different, like in this case the block sizes are 2, so like you consider a block size 2 like this. So here of course the largest value is 6, so you store it. Next you take a stride. So the in the previous, in case of convolution kernel also I mentioned this property of stride, so we can place the kernel in the here. So in that case you will get you cover these 4 pixels, and here the largest value is 8, and so on. So similarly you can use the like stride value also. So basically this is in a typical convolutional neural network, this is what the network looks like. So there are multiple layers like this. So usually the of course first is the input layer, after that there is one convolutional layer. So this W1, the weights are arranged in such a way that this kind of repeated structure is used. Apart from the repeated structure, the remaining elements are all 0. That is it's a sparse matrix. Now this weight matrix is sparse, but it has this repeated structure, so that the operation it performs is effectively a convolution. And similarly, just like convolution, this pooling operation can also be expressed as a matrix operation. So the next layer is a pooling layer, and then again we have a convolution layer, again we have a pooling layer, and so this way it operates, and finally we get a fully connected layer, and that gives us the output. So this is what a standard convolutional neural network looks like. So here I have drawn the input and the output in the form of what may be a vector, but in general the input and output can be images also. So in a deep convolutional network, each convolutional layer creates local interactions of the neighboring elements, and repeated convolution steps extend such interactions across the image, and so that the pixels far apart can also interact, and convolution filter size that basically defines a neighborhood of pixels. So, if the size is say 2 cross 2, that means 2 cross 2 like a 2 cross 2 neighborhood of pixels, they will interact to produce the output. If it is 3 cross 3, then like 9 neighboring pixels will interact to produce the output values, and so on. So, these convolutional like these are usually the user defined parameters, that is the size of the filters and so on, but the values of the parameters I mean the values of the filters, those A11, A12 etc., which I mentioned, they are usually estimated from the data by optimization, and we can we at the same layer we can actually have parallel convolutional filters. So, the output need not even be a single image, it can be a it can be a tensor where it's a multi-channel image just like an input. So, this convolutional neural network, this is used for various tasks in computer vision, such as this image recognition, object detection, image segmentation and so on. Now in case of computer vision, one of the important tasks is feature representation of the images. That is, whenever I have any image, I want a mathematical representation of the image through vectors or something like that. So, earlier the computer vision or image processing scientists used to come up with their own features borrowing from signal processing, which were typically various filters. So, those features used to indicate say something like texture, edges etc., but now the neural network itself calculates the different representations of the image, which are which it themselves can serve as the features. So, whenever we have one layer of the this neural network, it creates a different representation of the image, and after doing the convolution operation, and so that that output, that intermediate outputs which we get, those are known as the feature maps, and they may themselves be useful for further classification of the or further operations on the image. So, the need of defining features has gone away. So, this object detection is another very important problem, which is solved with the help of convolutional neural network, where we are searching for specific objects in an image. So, we that object can be present anywhere in any size. So, we simultaneously search at different locations and at different scales using this convolutional neural network. So, basically we are solving a classification problem at different locations and scales. And another important task is that of semantic segmentation, where we have an image like this, and the output is some kind of a segmented image, where which we can call it as a smoothed image, and this is achieved with the help of another special type of neural network called the UNet, which first encodes the image to some kind of a coarse form, and then creates a small representation of the image, and then brings it back to the original size, but in the process it has thrown away the various details and giving only a coarse grained representation. Now, these methods, they have various applications in earth system sciences. So, we will discuss these applications in great detail later, and so these are a set of references where I have basically provided you links to the different papers of computer vision, so that you can understand these different models. And so, these are the key points. So, the outputs can be of of these operations, they can be a function of several input elements or pixels. This convolution operation, this allows nonlinear interactions among the neighboring pixels to define the output. Now, we can have multiple layers of convolution to extend such interactions throughout the input image, and finally this CNN based deep learning, this is highly successful for computer vision and also has applications in earth system science. So, with that we come to the end of this lecture. We will continue these discussions further. Till then, goodbye.